Baby, I was sitting here thinking of you, thinking of you, thinking of you. Heard everything you said and I've been thinking it through, thinking it through. Baby, we gon' have a good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Baby, we gon' have a good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Baby, we gon' have a... I'ma take a loss, maybe you could be the one, I could be the moon, you could be the sun. Baby, I was hoping us two could have a son. You gotta give it up, you gotta give me some. Post like that, or you like it like that. Knees down, my hands on your back. Baby, let me give you something that you never had before. One night, make you sad to go. I want you, girl, no lie. Gotta have you, so I can't hesitate to go try. Your spirit's high like hola, your body shaped like sola. That coca, no cola. You're down to earth, you're so fly. Remember I told you you don't have to worry, girl. If you need me, I'ma make it in a hurry, girl. Cause girl, you look so marvelous. Make it hard for us, got to stay hungry, you starving us. Got my vision all blurry, girl. Baby, we gon' have a good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Baby, we gon' have a good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Baby, we gon' have a good night, my bros. Great times, my dubs. Paper chasing, but not after them dimes in them clubs. As long as I have a stack of you, money ain't what I'm attracted to. No front and the back in you. Ooh, look at the back on you. Boo, who knew your crew do whatever you tell them to? I shouldn't be shocked if you seldom do. You got them on lock in the cell, that's true. You wouldn't be the first girl, should've had a clue. Cause it ain't the first time that we ever kissed. It'll be the first time that ever lasted. I bet you wouldn't have a night like this. Stay fit.
Baby, I was sitting here thinking of you, thinking of you, thinking of you. Heard everything you said and I've been thinking it through, thinking it through. Baby, we gon' have a good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Baby, we gon' have a good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Baby, we gon'
okay, I'm always taking action, new with satisfaction. Had a dream that one day that I'ma make it platinum. She said, Rosie, where you going? I gotta hit the road. Never call me that again. My last name is Rose. Have a hey, shorty, we gon' have a if I thought about you once, popped up on my head. Thinking about that time she got it popping in the bed. I said, shorty, you remember? Way back in December. That was around the time you was a rookie or beginner. Had a good night, and later on it followed up a good flight. Me and my niggas, couple bitches from my hood, right? And I ain't making nothing, but you know I could fight. Shit is looking good, right? So I grabbed my shit, went straight to the bank, up place up and say I can't even wait no more. Before logo was secure, promo was secure. My spot back in her panties, dog. She only talking about she want that front seat in my Grammys. Have a good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Baby, we gon' have a good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, good night.
Baby, we gon' have a... Baby, I was sitting here thinking of you, thinking of you, thinking of you. Heard everything you said and I've been thinking it through.